Have you ever noticed how the mind insists on clinging to what does not depend on us? A message viewed and not answered, an opportunity that didn't come, a person who moved away. Most of our suffering is born from this illusion, that we can control the world around us. But the truth, though hard to accept, is liberating. You never had that power. The Stoics did not run away from reality. They faced it head-on and learned to distinguish what was in their control from what was not. For them, this was the key to emotional freedom. While the world ran after external certainties, they plunged into self-mastery. It was not resignation, it was applied wisdom. Imagine how many hours of your life you have wasted mulling over situations that have already happened, or that may not even happen. Does it bring you closer to peace, or take you away from it? Suffering is born of attachment, and detachment is not indifference, it is maturity. It is the deep understanding that there is a part of life that needs to be accepted with serenity. Accepting what cannot be changed does not mean being passive. It means redirecting your energy to what really matters, your choices, your attitudes, your response to the facts. Pain that comes from outside cannot be avoided, but suffering is always an internal decision. You only start to win in life when you stop fighting reality. Stoicism invites you to let go of the rope, to stop trying to hold on to what already slips through your fingers. The world will continue to be unpredictable, but clarity can reign within you. Suffering for what does not depend on you is like chasing after the wind. No matter how fast you go, it always escapes. But when you learn to focus on what you can control, your mind stops being hostage to chaos and starts to become a place of peace. Modern society pushes you all the time to look strong, impeccable, immune to failure. But this is not force, it is facade. The true Stoic power is not in never falling, but in always rising even more clearly. It is not about winning every day, but about standing firm even on days when everything seems to fall apart. To be unshakable is not to be cold. It's having depth. It is knowing that even when everything comes crashing down on the outside, there is a center inside you that remains intact. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a tranquility that does not depend on circumstances, but on how you position yourself in front of them. In practice, this means accepting pain without running away from it, but also not letting it define you. It's possible to feel anger without acting out of anger. It is possible to feel fear without being overwhelmed by it. The difference is in the conscious choice, in the space that exists between the stimulus and the response. This space is where the unshakable man dwells. You're going to miss it. It will be rejected. He will hear criticism. You will be frustrated. But all of this is part of the path. True steadfastness is born from accepting these realities and deciding to move forward with dignity. Not because it's easy, but because you know who you're becoming by bearing the weight without bending over. To be unwavering is to know that no matter what they say, what they do, or what fails around you, what defines you is within. And there, no one touches. When you find that out, you stop trying to prove something to the world. You come to live to honor your own principles. It's not about winning every day. It's about continuing every day. True strength is not in never failing, but in following you whole, even when everything breaks you on the outside. The Stoic man is not the strongest, he is the most stable. And today, stability is rarer and more valuable than any semblance of power. From an early age, we are taught to wait. Recognition, love, justice. As if the universe owed us a debt. But Stoicism turns this logic on its head. He shows us that expecting something from life is the shortest way to frustration. And that true freedom begins when you understand that you are not the center of anything. And that is not a bad thing. The world is indifferent to our desires. He doesn't punish you, but he also doesn't reward you just because you think you deserve it. And as hard as it sounds, this is what makes everything lighter. When you stop waiting, you start living. He ceases to be an eternal collector of reality and becomes a creator of his own path. Imagine living without the constant disappointment of expecting others to treat you the way you treat them. Imagine not depending on praise, return applause. This does not mean being cold. It means to be free. It means finding value in what you are, not what others give you. Stoic freedom comes from renouncing expectation. When you give without expecting back, when you act out of principle and not exchange, you discover a new form of power. A silent power, but one that no one can take away from you. There is nothing more frustrating than living waiting for something that may never come. The wise man stops waiting and starts acting. He understands that the universe owes him nothing, but he can give everything to the universe through his conduct, his ethics, and his presence. True greatness is born when you live not as the one who demands, but as the one who offers. When you understand that nothing is guaranteed, but everything can be built, including inner peace. You can spend your life trying to control what happens to you, but reality always finds a way to surprise you. Losses, delays, rejections, betrayals, all of this is out of your control. But there's something no one can take away from you: how you respond to each of these challenges. The Stoics said, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but the opinion we have of them that changes everything." Anger, frustration, and fear don't come from what happened, but from the interpretation you gave to what happened. And that is, yes, in your hands. Reacting wisely is what separates the common man from the man trained by philosophy. It is not about suppressing feelings, but about not being held hostage to them. Feeling anger is human. Being guided by it is optional. And this choice is where power lives. Imagine the peace of not exploding when something goes wrong. Not to lose your balance when someone tries to provoke you. This is not weakness, it is dominance. It is to show that your mind is under your leadership, not at the mercy of external chaos. Each time you react calmly, you strengthen your soul. You prove to yourself that you are greater than the stimuli you receive. And little by little, this becomes your new normal, your new identity, that of someone who does not depend on circumstances to maintain his greatness. In the end, life will always test you. But it's not the test that defines who you are, it's your answer. And when that answer comes from your essence, not from impulse, you become a man no one can bring down. When life starts to seem meaningless, our automatic reaction is to look outside for answers. Books, videos, gurus, advice. But what if I told you that the answer was never there? That perhaps everything you are looking for is already within you. It just needs to be heard. The Stoics always taught, know thyself. They knew that the more we try to fill ourselves with the external, the emptier we become. Because what is missing is not information, it is connection. And this connection is only born in the silence of introspection. We live in an age of excessive stimuli, opinions, comparisons. And in all this noise, we forget to listen to the only voice that really matters, ours. The voice that knows what hurts, what matters, what is real. Feeling lost is not a sign of weakness. It is an invitation, a call to return to the center, to rediscover who you are without the filters of the world. When you start looking inside, you realize that the compass has always been there. It just needed silence to work. Stoic self-knowledge is not about finding an ideal version of yourself. It's about bravely facing who you are today. And from that truth, build the version you want to be. With serenity, with virtue, with purpose. You've never been lost. I was just looking in the wrong direction. When he turns his gaze inward, he begins to see more clearly. And at that moment, the road reveals itself, not because the world has changed, but because you have finally begun to see. Most people take better care of their cell phones than their own minds. They put film cover, fall protection, but they leave the mind exposed to all kinds of emotional and mental garbage. Have you ever stopped to think about it? Your mind is your temple. It is the holiest place there is. And if you don't protect it, no one will do it for you. The Stoics knew that the mind is the last stronghold of freedom. When everything comes crashing down outside, it is still possible to maintain order inside. But this requires vigilance. It requires attention to what you consume, who you connect with, what you believe in. Because all of this enters, lodges, and often dominates you, an unprotected mind is like a house with the door wide open. Any energy thief enters, any criticism knocks you down, any comment shakes you. But a cultivated, cared-for, watched mind, it does not bow before any gale. The Stoic is not the one who isolates himself from the world, but the one who filters what deserves to enter his sacred space. He watches your thoughts like a guardian. He does not accept any idea as truth. He questions, he chooses, and above all, it cleans up what no longer serves. To protect your mind is to choose with intention. It is to reduce the noise, silence what doesn't get you anywhere, and surround yourself with what strengthens. A good book, a good conversation, silence, contemplation, this is discipline. And it's also self-love. Remember, you become what feeds your mind every day. If you want peace, feed yourself with peace. If you want clarity, cultivate silence. The temple of your mind can be a place of confusion or a place of wisdom. The choice, as always, is in your hands. We live in an era where likes are worth more than character, where the approval of others seems to have more weight than one's own conscience. But the Stoics would never live like that. For them, the measure of life was not what others thought. It was how much virtue there was in each act. Even when no one was looking, the search for validation is an invisible prison. You mold yourself to what others expect. He laughs when he doesn't want to. Pretend to be sure that you don't have it. He lives trying to be accepted while losing who he really is. Approval is volatile. Today you have it. Tomorrow they have forgotten you. But virtue remains. Virtue, for the Stoics, was the only true good. To act with justice, with courage, with wisdom. Not to be praised, but because it is the right thing. Because it lifts you up. Because this builds a strong soul. There is no full life without this foundation. When you stop living to impress and start living to honor your principles, something changes. Its presence changes. Your energy changes. You start to convey a quiet firmness that no one can fake. You start to be noticed not for what you flaunt, but for what you represent. External validation may be nice, but it will never be enough. There will always be someone criticizing. There will always be something to prove. Virtue, on the other hand, does not require an audience. It flourishes in silence, in intimacy, in consistency. And those who cultivate this inevitably become rare. Don't live to be accepted. Live to be respected for yourself. When you sleep in peace with your conscience, there is no external judgment that will throw you off balance. Because true greatness lies in following your values, even when no one is applauding. Have you ever said or done something in the heat of emotion and then deeply regretted it? We've all been there. Emotion is powerful, but without control, it turns into a storm. The Stoics did not want to eliminate emotions, but rather to tame them. And that changes everything. The emotion itself is not the problem. It is a natural part of the human experience. The danger lies in living at its mercy. One day you love, the next you hate. One day he is excited, the next in despair. And his life becomes a boat without a rudder, being swept away by unpredictable winds. Mastering emotions is like taming a wild horse. It requires patience, repetition, and awareness. It is not a matter of suppressing what you feel, but of acknowledging, welcoming, and above all, choosing how to act. That's where the real strength comes in. True control. The Stoics practiced this daily. They prepared themselves for loss, for mistakes, for pain, not out of pessimism, but out of wisdom. They knew that the world does not forgive those who react impulsively. They knew that the mind, if untrained, becomes an enemy of itself. Imagine how many relationships, projects, and opportunities are destroyed every day by decisions made in the midst of anger, fear, or anxiety. Now imagine the power of being the one who is not shaken, who feels but does not lose control, who breathes before reacting. This is the true master of himself, the man who feels intensely but chooses clearly. And this constant choice, day in and day out, is what turns him into someone the world can't bring down. Because whoever rules your emotions rules your life. It's easy to believe that something is missing. That to be happy, you need that person, that achievement, that perfect moment. But this illusion is what keeps us running in circles. The Stoics were clear. True sufficiency does not come from without, it comes from within. Have you ever had that feeling of emptiness even after achieving something you really wanted? This is because no external victory fills an internal hole. Wholeness is not the result of what you have, but of how much you are able to find peace within yourself, even when nothing feels right. Epictetus, one of the great names of Stoicism, said, "No man is free if he is not master of himself." Freedom, therefore, is not in having everything, it is in needing little. And this little is not scarcity, it is power, it's lightness, it is autonomy. Society wants to convince you that you need more. More appearance, more attention, more validation. But ancient wisdom whispers another truth. You already have it all. You just need to stop looking outside and start cultivating inside. Silence, focus, presence. When you discover that your peace does not depend on anyone, you become unstoppable, because nothing else threatens you. You don't have to run after what already lives in you. The serenity, the clarity, the strength, all of this is there waiting to be awakened. You are enough. Not because it is perfect, but because it is whole. When you understand this, the world stops being a place of scarcity and begins to be a field of possibilities. Because at last you are complete, and the complete does not beg for crumbs. You don't control the rain, the traffic, the reaction of others, or the course of many situations. But there is something that will always be your responsibility: your posture, your attitude, your character. And that, for the Stoics, was more than a choice. It was a duty. Life will frustrate you. It will challenge you. It's going to hurt you. This is inevitable. What is avoidable is becoming bitter because of it. You can be hurt without becoming someone hurt. You can lose without becoming a loser. And that starts with the question, who do I want to be even when everything goes wrong? Stoic wisdom did not promise a life without pain, but a mind that knows what to do with it. You can use each fall to get back on your feet more consciously, each no to strengthen your patience, each difficulty to train your discipline. You don't choose the battlefield, but you choose how you fight. Have you ever thought that the person you admire is perhaps someone who chose to react with virtue when the world pushed them into revolt? What defines you is not what happened to you. It's what you did with what happened to you. This is the true authorship of life. The Stoics called this living in conformity with nature. And that means living in line with reason, with wisdom, with virtue, even when the world around you seems to have lost its way. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be true to who you chose to be. At the end of the day, the world can take almost everything from you, but no one can take away your ability to choose your conduct. And this daily choice is what builds a man that time respects. A man who, even in the face of chaos, remains whole. We live in a world that values haste, performance, noise. But the Stoics saw greatness in the opposite of that, in serenity. While everyone runs, the serene man walks steadily. As chaos dominates the environment, he breathes and observes. This is not passivity, it is wisdom. Serenity does not come when all is well. It reveals itself just when nothing is there. It's easy to be calm in the lull. The real test is to stay centered in the midst of the storm. And this cannot be bought, nor can it be learned in a day. It is the result of practice, choices, clarity. How many times have you been swept away by the impulse? How many times have you reacted with despair, only to regret it later? Serenity is the antidote. It allows you to see the whole picture before you act. That he hears what was said between the lines. That responds with precision and not with explosion. For the Stoic, self-control is not stifling feelings, but understanding and directing them. It's knowing that even anger can be a useful signal if you have the calm to decipher it. When you master the timing of your answer, you control the game. Serenity makes you rare. Because the majority reacts, explodes, accuses. But you remain. You think. You choose. And this posture makes you be seen as someone reliable, respectable, firm, not by feigning strength, but by living with balance. Remember this, serenity is not the absence of emotion. It is dominion over it. And in today's world, being serene is a superpower. Those who cultivate it build a fortress within themselves and start to live with a peace that no one else can destroy. How many times have you caught yourself saying yes when you wanted to say no? How many times has it given in, molded itself, erased itself, just to please someone? The Stoics would never accept this. For them, pleasing others at the expense of one's own truth is one of life's greatest wastes. The quest to please is treacherous. It sounds like generosity, but it's often fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disappointing, fear of not being accepted. And to live in fear is to live small. It is giving up one's own essence in exchange for crumbs of acceptance. Stoic honor does not depend on the opinion of others. It is born of the inner commitment to the truth, with justice, with virtue. To live with honor is to choose to do the right thing even if no one sees it, even if it costs, even if it hurts. Pleasing can give you momentary comfort, but honor gives you lasting peace. When you look in the mirror and know that you were true to your values, that you didn't betray yourself for convenience, this is worth more than any applause. Living honorably also means accepting that you won't be for everyone, and that's okay. It's better to be respected for who you are than loved for who you pretend to be. And deep down, people feel it. They perceive when there is truth behind the words. Stop living for external approval. Start living for your truth. Because the world changes, opinions change. But its integrity is what builds its reputation, its peace, and its history. And that's worth more than any like. Pain is inevitable. We all go through losses, frustrations, falls. But how you deal with suffering is what really defines who you are. The Stoics did not seek to avoid pain. They used it as a tool for growth. To them, suffering was like a mirror. It is in the most difficult moments that you discover your true strength. When everything is going well, anyone looks strong. But what about when the floor disappears? When everything falls apart? That's where the Stoic shines, not because he doesn't feel it, but because he knows exactly what to do with what he feels. Suffering reveals its internal structure. It reveals whether you are anchored in solid values or just living on appearances. It shows whether your convictions are true or just beautiful words. And best of all, he polishes you. Like the fire that purifies gold, pain removes the excess, the illusions, the vanities, the ego, and it leaves only the essentials. What really matters, what really you are. Therefore, suffering can be a gift in disguise if you have the courage to face it head on. The Stoics did not cry their pains to the world. They faced them in silence. They transformed each scar into wisdom, not because they were insensitive, but because they knew that if you don't master your pain, it dominates you. You don't have to be afraid of suffering. You need to learn from it. Because when it arrives, and it will, you can choose, break yourself or transform yourself. And the Stoic always chooses to become stronger, more whole, more aware. It's easy to be virtuous when there are eyes watching you. It is difficult to maintain the same posture when no one is there to applaud. The Stoics said that a man's character reveals itself behind the scenes of life. It is there in silence that the real tests take place. When you choose to act with integrity, even without witnesses, you build a kind of strength that cannot be taught. You start to trust yourself. Know that no matter what, you will be true to your principles, not out of fear, but out of honor. It is on the day you are not recognized that your humility is put to the test. It is at the moment when no one thanks you that your altruism proves to be genuine. It is when the reward does not come that your intention is revealed. And it is these small tests that shape a great man. Stoic philosophy values this kind of quiet grandeur. The one that does not seek lights but roots. The one that doesn't need to be seen to be real. Because in the end, life observes. And more than that, you observe. And you know when you're cheating on or honoring yourself. Small daily choices create your destiny. It is not great deeds that build a man, but invisible habits. What do you do when you could cheat and choose righteousness? When he could run away and chooses to stay? When could I pretend, but chooses to be? So remember, the eyes of the world may close, but yours should never. You are tested not on stage, but behind the scenes. And it is there in silence that true greatness is born. The fear of loss is a silent poison. It prevents you from acting, from loving, from taking risks. You start living trying to avoid the worst rather than building the best. But Stoicism teaches you something revolutionary. Losing is part of life, and only those who accept this can truly live. Clinging to control, you become a prisoner of anxiety. Everything needs to be in place. Everyone needs to accept you. Nothing can go wrong. But the Stoic looks at this scenario and smiles, because he knows he doesn't need to have it all. He just needs to be whole. Being requires courage. Courage to show yourself, to say what he thinks, to live with intensity even knowing that it can hurt. A full life is not for those who avoid pain, but for those who accept the risk of living with truth. Have you ever hidden yourself for fear of being rejected? Have you ever stopped trying for fear of failure? Have you ever pretended to be something for fear of not being enough? That's the price of living trying to avoid loss. And the cost is high. You lose yourself in the process. The Stoic would rather lose something outside than lose its essence. He does not live for what may end. He lives for what can grow within him. And when you understand that, fear loses its power, because you know that nothing essential can be taken away from you. So live with courage, with presence, with authenticity. Losing is part of it, but not being who you are. This is the biggest loss there is. And when you have the courage to be, the world stops looking so threatening and becomes an open field for your truth to flourish.